relationship. So working for Kris Jenner is a really difficult thing. Like,
What's
I
the
don't
most-
think I could do it.
What's the most difficult thing about it?
She just is really demanding. She wakes up at 4:30 in the morning, and she ends her day at about 6 p.m. with a glass of wine. So you have to get everything in between 4:30 and 6 p.m. or she's not having it.
Okay.
She's just really tough.
Okay. How did you start becoming a manager in the first place? I mean, who was the first person you managed, and how did that happen?
Well, the first person I managed was in 1990, I guess, and that was Bruce Jenner.
Okay.
And I did that because I had to figure out a way to feed my kids. So, you know, and make a living and pay the rent. And so it was a necessity, and I figured it out really fast because there were a lot of kids.
And what were you doing with Bruce at the time?
He had some experience in doing motivational speaking. And so I said, you know, I think this would be a great way for you to go out and get back out there and kind of work on your speech, write a book. And in those days, I barely had a computer. We were using a typewriter. So we did press kits and made copies, like 7,000 by hand, and sent them to every single speakers bureau in the country.
Right.
And waited for the phone to ring.
Right.
And it worked. So we started
And so then
a
that
tour.
evolved into becoming a manager.
Just managing the whole process, managing the speaking engagements, managing, you know, several other people. And then as my kids got older and we started doing our television show, it just exploded that way.
Got it. So another thing that struck me, you mentioned Kylie earlier, but so you have these girls, they're all doing their own thing. What if they get into competing categories? Like how do you guys, I know, so Kylie does lip kits and you did the contouring kits. Like one day, is there a collision where you're doing the same products, or do you sit around a table saying, okay, I'm going to do this stuff and you're going to do this stuff? Because it all seems very well.
We do map it out. We do have meetings. We don't have
There's a
meetings
roadmap.
about formulas and specific products and packaging, but if, like, I just launched lipsticks, and so she has lipsticks, so we make sure that the formulas are completely authentic to me and her formulas are authentic to her, and we run them like they're two totally separate businesses. But we do have communication over our timeline and our launches, so nothing is too close. And we make sure that our formulas are nothing alike so that we just never run into that problem. And if there's something that we really both had our eyes set on, we would collab and do it together.
I think too that one business doesn't cannibalize the other at all, and they have two completely different fan bases, which is it's interesting.
Right. What about that roadmap you mentioned? So when you say there's a roadmap, Kris, what does that roadmap look? I'm just really curious. Back to being the mastermind, like how does that all work?
Well, it's a document that lists everything the girls are going to do, for example, for the rest of the year in
So
products.
you have a master document.
And we add to it and, you know, subtract from it and make sure that one thing doesn't, you know, get in the way of another, and that it makes sense. And, you know, you really have to put some, you know, heavy lifting into exactly how you're going to roll things out and what makes sense for each girl's brand and who's doing what. And, you know, it's a daily conversation. It's a you know, a big deal because they have so many things going on. So every day I'll come to work and I feel like I'm working for a different company or a different brand. It depends on what needs to be done. But I think for me, and dealing with what we deal with internally as a family, we have to have a spreadsheet basically on who's doing what when, so it's all smooth.
Whiteboards all over the office.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd love to see those. They must be quite expansive.
They're top secret.
They're top secret.
Yeah.
You do a lot of different stuff. What happens when we've all been privy to the disagreements that sometimes crop up in a family, right? What happens when those kinds of disagreements spill over into the business? So, you know,
Has that ever really happened? If If it is, we do always call my mom.
And then,
We yell at her and make her handle it.
Yeah.
I'm always putting out fires. I'm like a fireman
yeah, that was one of my
with
questions.
an
actually.
a really big extinguisher.
What's the biggest fire you put out recently? That you talked earlier about
Oh,
crisis
dear.
management. What's the most kind of
We haven't really had a business fire. We really haven't. We've really agreed. I think the business is, for the girls, very creative, and I think they have a lot of fun. So it's not the kind of thing where they're not competitive with each other in that way. So I think they